such a powerful experience because they were alive. The kids were actually enjoying it. The kids wanted the father's attention. And the wife was like in love with the father and the experience they were all having together. It was a beautiful, like, ideal situation. I remember I wrote my thesis. I didn't even have it in my bag. I didn't actually pass my year because the woman who passed me when I was at university, she actually was a feminist Jew who self-hating Jew. So she actually failed me, unfortunately. I was doing music and social studies, and she actually failed me. Yeah, which is a shame. But one of the reasons I think was because I wrote a very good paper, but it was on the Jewish family unit, which is the opposite of what she was going on all about. So anyway, that was good for me because that year I didn't pass. And what did I do? I went to Israel and became fluent. So that was my journey. Like if she would have passed me, I would have stayed another year, different life journey. So everything that can be a stumbling block can sometimes turn around to like a flag to head a different direction. So that paper I wrote about the Jewish family, that was my big thing. And I wasn't trying to give rebuke to my own parents because they weren't maybe living that ideal that I was finding here. But there was a part of me that was angry about it, I'll be honest. Why didn't I have a father who had time for me? Why didn't he talk to me as much as I needed? Why didn't we sing together? Why didn't I experience family life? And the Chassidus, what I found was it was the most intense form of doing that. Like I said before, we have this Rebbe, this leader, come back to the Rebbe, and this is on a large scale of the family. It becomes not just your family in your house, it becomes a communal family, where the Rebbe represents as if he's the father, and we're all his children, and he runs the table after the meal, after you've had your special time with your family. He then, they kiss the bed and they go to bed, and sometimes, I don't personally so much, but I have a different path how I do this, but many times you go out and you sit at a table of the Rebbe, and he gives over Friday night, or Shabbos day, or even Motzi Shabbos, he gives over certain spiritual insights from the weekly Sedra, and he gives over, like as a father, to his children, and with that unit, they feel much more strengthened, togetherness, and there's like this idea, like we said, the importance of family unit, but also finding it in a communal way, and they pray together, and there's a lot of togetherness, sometimes some places of learning together, and there's also the idea of the simchas. When you make a simcha, when the Rebbe especially makes a simcha, everyone is there, and it's a very large scale thing. You can see a Rebbe simcha, maybe I'll bring you to one, or you see a wedding of a Rebbe. It could be thousands of people, and there's food, there's everything everyone needs, and it's a beautiful experience, a very powerful experience, and the Rebbe dances with the chosim, the bride, and the groom. There's a special ceremony after the chasna called the mitzvah dance, and there's all sorts of special things.
Some years back in America, there was a Chassidic wedding with 50,000 eating guests. 35,000 men, 15,000 women. The eating guests, besides,
all the extras. So you see, he's experienced humongous things. I've experienced big ones, but me personally, what drew me more when I came to Israel. So I didn't go to the Chassidic world. I went to the Yeshivish world because I told you I went back to London, and there was the Yeshivish world there was very interesting, and the learning, and my brother-in-law was drawn, and I mean, this story is interesting itself. My best friend ended up marrying his twin sister. So you imagine we were living together in the dorms, and I was dating his twin sister, and he didn't even know.
Wait, can you say that sentence again? Your best friend?
Yeah. My best friend ended up becoming my brother-in-law because I married his twin sister.
Could you,
and I knew her from the gym, my six-packs running around, you know what I'm saying? So she remembers me, from then until then, and she's shy. I didn't put on that much weight then, so I was still in somewhat good condition. So we went on dates, and Baruch Hashem, we got married, and my brother-in-law is not Hasidic. He didn't go on the path I went. But my wife, who also was not Chassidic, she was more traditional background, and probably originally from a non-Chassidic background. I actually do come from the original Chassidic roots that were lost in the way in London. She was from a more Litvik. She was from a place in Lithuania originally, Slobodka and things like that. A different group, but she herself felt drawn to the way the Chassidic path was, and we went on a journey together. But I didn't initially start that way. I started with the Yeshivish way, and I kept feeling these lacks, and I kept being drawn to the Lubavitch, and another group called Breslov, which is very famous nowadays. Everyone hears about Breslov, this idea of speaking to God in the fields, and spiritual swat, and I'm not talking about smoking up, I'm talking about spiritually. Please ask a question.
Right. So you spoke about like being in the whole family unit and whatever. I just want to throw out a situation. Let's say, I would say from your perspective, Chas v'Chalila, your kids grow up and they see that that it's not for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they want to go on their own journey, their own path, and they want to, divide themselves from what the practices that you guys practice, or however you guys say the family is, whatever. How would you deal with that? Like, what would you?
Very good question, and the answer is they already started their journey. As soon as they came out of the womb, they were on their own journey that we're not the bosses of. Yeah? We're never the bosses of their journey. That's the thing that parents think, they have a certain control over their children. We have no control from beginning to 120. All we're doing is providing what we feel is the most positive path for them, and they can choose whatever they want. It's up to them. I'm not saying like Yisro in this week's parsha, he said, so make one of your sons Moshe, he can be very firm, and the other one can go and experience the world, and then we'll see what happens. I'm not talking about that. We're not going to say we're going to go there and put them in secular experiences, you know, like, for example, some things we don't bring our children to, because I'm very involved. If you catch up on that now, what I've done now is I'm now very involved with the world. I was just in the Azrieli Towers meeting with someone, some big China investment person, and some woman who's, you know, running a marketing company with a photographer and all sorts of stuff, and I was hanging around this rapper Shine and going to concerts and all sorts of stuff, funny stuff that I've been doing the last few years. I've been involved in concerts and music and promoting my past. I've recaptured what I was before, but what the point is, and that's a very important thing of Chassidus, is to not. The Chassidus, a lot of Chassidus people see now there's a cut-off community, nothing to do with the world. Well, maybe not now, was. Now the world is changing, and not only that, the Chassidish world is changing, and the financial situation is changing, the headspace and the ability to do kiruv, and the tools and the exposure, and everything's changing. So there is much more of an understanding you need to go out in the world. And the Rebbes I speak to have encouraged me all the time to interact and be involved. So me personally, I'm very involved with the world. Now, how much do I give my kids? I don't expose them to too much unnecessarily. I try to just let them have the positive things, like seeing their secular family and going to PAV, it's called PAV, experiences like the zoo, or places, you know, where it's not secular, not frum, it's just positive experience. Try to keep it all in a positive place. Like, I'm not going to put on, like, you know, some crazy movie for my kids to educate them. I don't believe in that, yeah? Because I know what it did in my head, and it still does in my head. I'd rather not, yeah? So, like, for example, like, you know, with weddings, some weddings are great, and I'll bring my daughter, who's less, you know, worried about it, and my baby, but I wouldn't bring my boys, because my boys would just be like, whoa, you know, what's this? You know, they've only seen women dressed in a respectful manner generally. I'm not going to take them to my wedding coming up in Tel Aviv, where everyone's the opposite. Yeah? It's like a big, you know, whatever, you know. So that type of spirit. Me personally, I'll go. My rabbis will tell me I have to go, because they're my family, or I'm doing work with these people. I have a different path, because of my own personal experience. But, you know, you have to see that Chassidus is one of the most important other principles that was brought down, and this is really the key that we can all relate to in our own lives in a practical way, whether we are religious or not, is every person has the opportunity to turn darkness into light. Whatever that means on a practical level, each person can internalize themselves. Everyone has negativity, and they can transform it into positivity on some level, to be more positive, more nice, more kind, or in a life, you know, style, or in, like, for me personally, it was not positive for me, my lifestyle. I know what was going on. I was, you know, involved with gangsters who were in nightclubs, and I was, you know, breaking girls, whatever, and all sorts of stuff that wasn't positive, you know. And like, to be able to give a real honest, positive relationship to someone, for me this has worked and helped to develop those positive things and transform myself into a more positive person. And like, he introduced me Midnightrabbi, like, I've worked on the streets and helped kids transform themselves on some level. You know, obviously it's not me, it's like, this is my belief system that it's Hashem helping me, I'm just the agent to do that for people. But like, you know, take example of Breslau, we make a big point of this. The idea of focusing on the positive, and focusing on being happy, simcha, and energizing and prayer, pouring out your heart. If you're feeling down, to fight that force. Like, depression is a very negative force right nowadays, probably the worst force that's affecting the world on a large scale. My own mum, she should be well, she had a big fight with this, and other people around. It's such a, you know, very people even with great lives supposedly are fighting depression. You know? How many musicians can you burn your fingers and more, and toes, and everybody here that died from depression, even though they had what people consider the best life, you know? So to fight depression is something everyone can relate to, and to turn that around into simcha. That's an example from Breslau. There's a big emphasis in Chassidus is to emphasize the simcha, the happiness, like I said, refreshing, the life force. So that's another thing. But me personally, I'm more in the mainstream groups, neither Breslau nor Lubavitch, which is basically including a lot of groups, which is Bob Bells, Vision. My kids go to Vision.